and the combined velocity triangles, which already we have discussed. And then the expression for work done statement for both single stem, keeping only for single stage, for impulse as well as the reactions turbines. And we'll be discussing on the multi-stage impulse turbines only for discussion. We are not going to look into any kind of mathematical expressions for such things. So before actually we get into the steam turbine classifications and all, what exactly the steam turbine? Okay, let's look into that. So what is a steam turbine? Okay, the steam turbine is a device which is going to use steam. So especially, see, we call that as a steam. To be very precise, it is your superrated steam. Superrated steam, which behaves like an ideal gas. If you look at the properties of this superrated steam, they almost follow all your ideal gas laws. So when I speak of a superrated steam, so what is the thing which comes to our mind is it's operating high pressure. It's operating at a high pressure and the very high temperature. Okay, so these two things are very important. Now, if I try to draw the enthalpy entropy diagram, let's draw the enthalpy entropy diagram and try to understand what exactly the steam turbine, how it works, what is it, all those things. So this is my HS diagram, okay, and I do have what is called as a critical point. Okay, this is a dome, this is my saturation line, okay, and if I try to draw all my temperature isotherms, if I try to draw, so there is one critical isotherm will be going like this, then I'll be having something like this, then I'll be drawing one or two. Okay, these are my, so we call this as critical. I see this is your isotherms, what I am trying to draw, and I do have a point. So this is the point where this is the critical point. So this is my critical point. Why it is called as a critical point? See, at the critical point, the couple of all the phases do exist. That is, to the left hand side, I do have the water, that is a liquid phase. Okay, I do have the liquid phase this side. Okay, and to the right hand side, I have the vapor phase. So at that particular point, if you look at it, if any steam or any working substance is at that particular critical point, that is your critical temperature and critical pressure. If you at this particular point, both the phases, that is within a fraction of this, so at that particular pressure and temperature, the phase change occurs from your liquid to your vapor immediately. So what are these typical values for water? If you look at it, so PC is around 220 bar. So each book they give 221, 220, but around 220 bar. And your critical temperature will be around 374 degrees Celsius. So these are my critical values. So these are my critical values. Is the steam or your steam turbine operates above these critical values? Yes. So if I give an example, say your what we used in your nuclear power plants. So most of the turbines, they will be operating at pressures and temperatures above this 220 bar and 374 degrees Celsius. So I may be having a turbine operating at 350 bar and a temperature of 500 or 600 degrees Celsius. That means that they are all critical, they are all the critically operated, is they are the turbines operating above the critical values of your steam. Okay, what happens in a turbine? So what happens in a turbine? See, the first and the foremost thing that happens is the steam is going to expand. The steam is expanded through a set of blades. Okay, through a set of blades, rotor and stator blades. Okay, and what are the output of it? To extract work. I'm going to get the what is called as a mechanical rotation. Okay, now See, if you look at it actually, here, this is how they see. The steam will expand and then I'm going to, the steam will be turning your veins. Will be turning your rotary veins or the veins fixed on the rotor, and that that particular rotary motion is converted to, because there is a shaft coupled to that particular rotor, I'm going to extract work. That is the main purpose of your steam turbine. Now, there are some critical points which we have to do here. We have to look into this. Some critical points under steam turbine. Now, see, what is there? They see, you look at this particular thing in your steam turbine, the leakage of the steam is very critical, because as I told, the steam turbine is operating at higher pressure and temperature. If there is any leakage, a little bit of leakage, there will be a sudden drop in the pressure and the temperature. And that plays a major role in your operating or extracting the work. Okay. And also, see, in steam turbine, we try to use large mass flow rates, that is large quantities of steam. Large quantities of steam. So many kgs per second. So maybe 200 kg per second or 300 kg per second. So that is the amount of steam which is operating. And as I told, most of the steam turbines actually, where we try to get this work done in stages. Okay. So axial turbines, see, axial steam turbines are majority preferred. So axial steam turbines are preferred or used compared to radial one. Okay. Why? Because I'm trying to extract the steam in or expand the steam in stages. Okay. Now, when you speak of axial this thing, so usually what type of this thing? I call those as, so if I call them as steam turbines, okay, say for example, if it is of a 4-stage turbine, okay, if it is a 4-stage turbine, I may be having 2 high pressure stages and 2 low pressure stages. If it is of 4-stage turbine. If it is of a 3-stage turbine, so there will be 1 high pressure stage and 2 low pressure stage. So this is how your steam turbines will work actually. The major thing is the steam gets expanded. I'm going to get the work out of it. The second thing is, because of the operating pressure and temperature, the steam turbine is very critical. Leakages, these should be avoided as much as possible. And large quantities of steam will be expanded to extract the work. And because of the expansion of the steam in different stages, axial flow steam turbines are preferred. So when you come to the steam turbines, so most of the steam turbines which are of either 4 stages or of 3 stages. So if it is of 4 stages, 2 will be of high pressure, 2 will be of low pressure. If it is of 3 stages, there will be 1 high pressure and 2 low pressure stages. So this is how a simple construction of your, maybe how your steam will be there, how the steam turbines, without actually drawing the sketch of it, I'm trying to explain. Now, when you come to classification, of the steam turbine, okay, the major classification which we already have is actually impulse. Anyhow, we know that we have the impulse one. What is actually in this impulse steam turbine? The kinetic energy. What is it actually? Kinetic energy means it is V square by 2G or V square by G. What are V, that particular thing, V square by 2. So the kinetic energy is absorbed in the rotors. So absorbed in the rotors. If there is an absorption of kinetic energy in the rotors, I call such type of machine is called impulse machine. So if the steam being the operating working fluid, it becomes an impulse steam turbine. Now the second one is actually the reaction. So what happens here in reaction? Both kinetic, so it's not only potential, so it is both kinetic and your pressure energy. Both kinetic and pressure energy are absorbed in the rotors of the turbine. If such things happen, I call that as reaction energy. So here, even under this particular thing, even under this reaction, we have one more sub classification. We call that as impulse reaction turbine. What it is actually? In impulse reaction combined turbine, actually, where your kinetic energy quantity is slightly more than your pressure energy quantity. That's all. So where kinetic energy is absorbed, the quantity of the kinetic energy conversion is slightly on the upper hand compared to your pressure energy resistance. Now, if you want to give some examples actually, so for an impulse thing, I can give, there are two types of turbines which is I think which is existing for the past maybe 19th century or 18th century. So examples for impulse turbine. A few examples for an impulse turbine. We have D-level turbine, which is a very good example which you might have studied in your elements of mechanical engineering. D-level turbine, and we have the Curtis turbine. Okay, these are the two examples which comes to it. So the moment something comes to our mind regarding the reaction turbine, so Parsons turbine, or we call that as Parsons, Parsons turbine, which is having a 50% reaction, that is the degree of reaction is 0.5. Okay, under this, as I told, impulse reaction combined turbine, we have what is called as Raichu turbine. Okay, where a slightly impulse kinetic energy conversion is slightly on the upper hand compared to your reaction. So where if you look at the pure reaction turbine, 50-50%, so the best example is your Parsons reactions turbine. Okay, now, so the moment what comes to our mind, see when we speak of impulse turbine, reaction turbine and all, how the energy of the steam is getting converted. It is converted mainly because of the kinetic energy, it becomes an impulse turbine. If it is both kinetic as well as the pressure energy, it's a reaction turbine. And both kinetic energy are getting converted, but your kinetic energy is slightly on the upper end, it becomes an impulse reaction turbine. So we have some couple of examples I told. So the next thing what we have to look into is actually, as I told, we do compounding in turbines. See, this is the compounding in steam turbines. See what you people have studied in your elements of mechanical engineering, whatever it may be. So there you might have studied something about velocity is getting velocity remains constant throughout your stages, or the pressure remains constant throughout the stages, all those things and all. But the purpose of the why you do this compounding, we should be able to know. See, I'll give a simple. So I'll try to draw a simple block diagram to make you to understand. Suppose I do have a turbine, something like this. So I have a turbine. So this is my turbine. Okay, and to the turbine, I'll be giving some input, and you have getting some output. Okay, what are the inputs we try to give? So those are properties of the steam. Okay, it may be at some pressure 1. So these are the input 1 and this is my exit 2. Let me call this. So it enters at some pressure P1, temperature T1 and some velocity V1. Okay, now it goes at some pressure P2 and T2 and V2. Now, if you closely observe, you have one more device over here. Okay, this device is your condenser. Okay, that condenser will be operating at a pressure less than your atmosphere. Okay, less than your atmosphere, and maybe temperature will be maybe in and around approximately under around atmospheric temperature, or less than that also, around that actually. So you have an operating, so what will be your operating? I told that your steam turbine will be operating at very high pressures. So let it be more than your 220 bar, what I told. So let me think, it is operating at some 350 bar and maybe around temperature of 450 degrees Celsius. Okay, 450 degrees Celsius. Maybe the velocity also very high, maybe 300 meters per second or 400 meters per second. This is the velocity with which your fluid will enter or your steam will enter. Okay. Now, what should be your exit? See, I see your condenser is operating at some atmosphere, the pressure less than your atmosphere. Now look at this actually. What is the delta P? Look at this. And your exit is almost, your P2 is almost atmospheric. It should be nearer to atmosphere. 350 bar and 1 bar or 1 atmosphere. Look at this. What is my delta P? My delta P is around 350 bar. The pressure difference is around 350 bar. If I try to build any device, any kind of a rotor or something which can accommodate such a very high pressure drop, the size will be very huge, one thing. And the second thing, they will be rotating at uncontrolled speeds. They can rotate at uncontrolled speeds because I can't see what will happen. As I told that if I'm going for a kind of a impulse machine, there will be a nozzle. So in the nozzle, the steam is getting expanded to very high velocities. As I told, 300 meters per second. I told, just a number. It can be 400, it can be 1000, it can be 800 also. So the speeds are very, very high. So the velocity is very, very high. So the energy conversion, if I try to do under a single stage, there will be huge losses. That means the conversion of energy will be very, very less, or it is not efficient, to be very precise. That's one thing. So because of this very high speed, the stress induced in the components, from the design perspective, the high amount of stress, it can be thermal stress or it can be some kind of a working stress will be very high. And also because of the high speed, how will you balance it? So balancing will become one more major problem, and designing will be designing for to ensure your turbine works under all these conditions will become more and more complex. So when your design is complex, when you have a balancing problems, you have the stress problem. Stress means if I want to handle the high stress, actually I have to go for a very costly material. All this will lead to what is called as cost escalation. We call it as the amount of cost you invested or on installation of any steam turbine. If I go for a single stage, will be very, very huge. So to compensate for this or to ensure that there is a smooth working of your turbine, we go for what is called as staging. That is arrangement of or extraction of this energy in different stages. If I do it in n number of stages, 2 or 3 or 4 stages, then all these problems can be mitigated to a certain extent. Okay, so the cost may come down, your stress on your components can be reduced because of the not operating at very high speeds. So your balancing problems can be reduced. So if I ensure that my turbine is rotating at 3000 rpm or 6000 rpm rather rotating at 40,000 or 50,000 rpm, so the balancing problem also can be reduced. And designing for 3000 rpm, rotating any component 3000 rpm is much, much better or easy compared to any component rotating at 40,000 rpm. So to address all these problems, we go for what is called as compounding. So that is the major reason why we go for it. So because on other side condenser is there, on this side I have very high pressure. So somewhere if here this becomes critical for me, this becomes critical for me. So to address these issues actually we go for compounding. Okay. Now let us write what are the things which are important here. See, as I told, the first thing is the pressure. Okay. The pressure in the turbine, okay, is usually roughly, it has been found it is more than roughly 140 bar. Okay, rather I'm giving the lower end pictures. Okay, and the second thing is, as I told, your condenser pressure is less than your atmospheric pressure, and velocities, the third one, the velocities are very high, so greater than around 300, it can go up to 1400 meters per second. So very high velocities. Okay, now without compounding, what will happen? As I told, without compounding, without compounding, what's going to happen? The first thing is your nozzles, as I told, it will expand the steam to very high velocity, that is your kinetic energy. That means your velocity will be very high. Okay, and then second point is your energy conversion. Energy conversion is not efficient. Is not efficient because of huge losses. Because of huge losses. And then the third point is I do have the uncontrolled speed. What is this actually? If speed is uncontrolled, see, let me put this. You have the uncontrolled speed. This speed will lead to high stresses. High stress in the components. This is one thing. And the second thing is balancing problem because of this speed. Okay, balancing problems. And the third thing is actually your design will be complex. Okay, and all this thing will lead to what is called as cost escalation. Okay, so these particular problems can be addressed using your compounding. Okay, because of all this uncontrolled speed, uncontrolled velocities, or uncontrolled delta P, pressure difference and actually, all these things will lead to what is called as compounding or need for compounding. Without compounding, these things are going to happen if you don't compound or if you don't go for staging. To be very precise, this is called as staging. If you don't go for staging, these things are going to happen. Now, when we speak of compounding, okay, when we speak of compounding, that is called as compounding, or it is also called as staging. Okay, we have three types. One is the pressure compounding. Okay, the second one is the velocity compounding, and the third one is the pressure velocity compounding. We have this three types: pressure compounding, velocity compounding, and the third one is called as a pressure velocity compounding. Okay, these are the three methods of compounding. So I will try to show you the sketches. What is it actually? Now, when we speak of pressure compounding, okay, now if you closely observe, See, I do have, see to the sketch, so look at the sketches actually. You have the nozzle ring. See, the first set of stator blades are called as no stator blades or nozzle rings. And then followed by a rotor. Then we have the intermediate, what is called as stator blades. Then we have the rotating blades. A combination of stator and rotor blades combined together is called as stage. If you look at it here, so this is called as one stage and this is called as one stage. Okay, now look at this. This is one stage and this is one stage. See, I have shown you two different type of arrangement here. Okay, two different types of arrangement here. The first one is the impulse reaction, or it's by where I have the impulse type of, or the conversion of kinetic energy is more. So whenever you have the more kinetic energy conversion, you go with what is called as a cup type of blade. Or if it is only pure reaction, I go with what is called as aerofoil type of blades. So that is the major thing. How I can identify an impulse machine or a reaction machine means I can identify based on the type of the blades or type of the profile blades I'm going to use. Okay, that means if there is if it is like a cup shape, you can look at it. If it is like almost like a cup shape, if a rotor blades is like a cup shape, it is exclusively used for kinetic energy conversion. It is, if it is of an aerofoil type of a thing, then it is called as a reaction type of thing. Okay. Now look at this. What will happen in case of a pressure compounding? See, expansion is shared in multi rows of nozzles or stator vanes. What is it? If you come down a little bit down, you can see that pressure and velocity, I have shown the how the expansion takes place. So the velocity, what will happen? See, the fluid enters at a certain velocity, then it gets expanded, or in the nozzle, then it gets expanded in the rotor, or expansion is a nozzle means there is an increase in the velocity. Expansion in a rotor of a turbine means there is a drop in the velocity. That's the meaning of it. Try to understand this particular meaning. There is an increase in velocity in the nozzle and a decrease in the velocity in the rotor. Okay. Then what will happen in the stator plane? Once again, there is an increase in the velocity to initial velocity. Then it gets expanded. Okay. So expansion of the steam is shared in multiple rows of nozzles. That means it is the pressure compounding machine. And if you look at how the steam pressure, see, it enters certain pressure, then there is a drop of the pressure in the nozzle, then it's almost remain constant in the rotor, then there is a drop in the pressure in the stator, then it comes down. So if I have 4 stages, this continuously, this will go on. Okay. Now, if you come to the reaction type of thing, what will happen? See, the velocity, what's happening is the velocity, the way the velocity is increasing and decreasing in the nozzle followed by your rotor is small. Look at the numbers. I'm looking at the numbers. Say here, if this velocity increases, if I call it maybe around 100 meters per second, here is around maybe 30 meters per second. I'm looking at the vertical heights. So in case of your reaction turbines, the component of velocity or the velocity increase or decrease in case of is the screen visible now? Hello?
Yes, sir. It's
Hello?
visible.
Yeah. I think in between the screen went off.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Visible.
Fine. Yeah. So what will happen if you look at both the things? Pressure compounding means, see, in both either both your portions of whether it's a kind of an Raichu turbine or a Parsons turbine. So the nozzle or the stator blades, the expansion and its expansion, it's going to take place. Oh, see, this is very critical here. So this point, this point, this. So expansion is stayed in multiple rows of nozzle. Such things are called as pressure compounding. So the whatever the expansion that takes place, no, if it is done in nozzles, it is called as pressure compounding machines. Now, what is the velocity compounding? Okay, if you look at it, if the expansion takes place in the nozzle and the intermediate stator rings, deflecting the steam to the next stage. Look at it here. What happens here? In case of a velocity compounding, see, the pressure drop takes place in the single nozzle. Pressure almost remains constant. Pressure almost remains constant. And I can have the velocity compounding only in case of an impulse machine. See, look at this type of the, see, this is the size, this is the type of the vein you look at it. Type of the vein you look at it. Pressure compounding I can have in either reaction turbine or in case of a Reichhut or impulse reaction turbine. Velocity compounding I can have only in case of an impulse machine. So look at, see, this particular thing is should be, you should see when you are studying the turbo machines course, you should understand it. Rather than elements of mechanics, where they simply tell that, so pressure and velocity compounding is the pressure is getting absorbed or the velocity is getting absorbed. This is a kind of what we call it as a compounding. So if you go a little deep and try to understand the velocity compounding here in case of a turbo machines course, velocity compounding means I am trying to look at only for an impulse machine. Expansion takes place in a nozzle and intermediate, or see, they're going to deflect it. They're going to deflect this particular thing. Look at this, what's happening here. The velocity will increase in the first stage. Then in the rotor it's dropping. Then it's almost same. Look at this. This is very critical. See, it's almost, what is happening? There is no expansion takes place in case of a velocity compounding. It's only deflecting the fluid. Say I am entering at some 20 meters per second. I will go to around 400 meters per second, then expand in the first stage of the rotor to maybe around 300 meters per second. It remains 300 meters per second in this intermediate stator, enters at 300 meters per second here and exits at 300 meters per second here. So there will be a slight change will be there, slight drop of the loss. But if velocity is almost same in the intermediate stator rings, only they will be deflecting the fluid to the next stage. If such things happen, those are called as velocity compounding. It's called as velocity compounding. Now, the third one, what I told, that's called as pressure velocity compounding. What is this pressure velocity compounding? Okay, so in case of pressure velocity compounding, what will happen? I do have the combination of your pressure compounding as well as the velocity compounding. Okay, first couple of stages, if it is a 4-stage turbine, first 2 stages will be of pressure compounding. The next 2 stages will be of velocity compounding. So you look at it, pink I'm trying to show. It enters at some pressure. In the nozzle, there is a drop in the pressure. There is a corresponding increase in the velocity. Then in the rotor, the pressure almost remains constant. There is a drop in the velocity. That is, there is an absorption of or kinetic energy. Kinetic energy get absorbed. Then once again, there is an expansion of the steam in the nozzle. Then the velocity or the pressure also is getting absorbed in your rotor, sorry, in the stator. Then in the rotor, your pressure almost remains constant and your velocity is getting absorbed. That is, your kinetic energy is getting absorbed. That becomes your first compounding, 2 stages. That is the pressure part, pressure compounding. Then when I go to my velocity compounding, so whatever your pressure, no pressure has to drop to a particular thing. So that means to the left hand side, first 2 stages I do have high pressure 2 stages, and the next 2 stages are called as low pressure stages. So low pressure, what will happen? The stator 3, what I am showing, the pressure will drop to a particular pressure and it remains almost constant for the next two rotors, R3 and R4. But what will happen to your velocity? See, the velocity in your S3 will increase, then it's going to drop in your R3, then it almost remains, that means it's going to deflect. See here, it's only deflecting. So there it gets only deflected. The steam gets deflected in your S3 without any increase in the velocity. Then the further expansion takes place in your fourth rotor, that is R4. And this is called as your pressure velocity compounding.